Hi, today we're going to talk about logistics. Well, logistics is one of the most important elements of international trade. You have done your contract, you've done your negotiations, the pricing is fixed, payment methods, and so on. Next step is to get the goods from your factory, your warehouse, to the client so you can get paid. And most of risks is in that. Once the goods have left your warehouse, is not in your control, and it's getting to till it gets to the destination, things can happen to it. Depends to what kind of goods you've got. It can be perishable, food stuff, livestock, live animals can die, machinery can get damaged, and so on. So you're going to pay special attention to logistics. Now we're going to start with transportation, which is the most important part of a logistic. Now, first of all, there are four ways you can transport any goods: roads, rails, sea, and air. Besides, putting on the back of a donkey, these are the four special ways you can do, most common ways you can do it. And we're going to look at each one of them and how we choose what's the best way of transport for our goods. Then next step is, would you do it yourself or would you have a forwarding agent to do it? Most likely you would have a forwarding agent, but nevertheless you have to understand all the steps and elements of logistics so you can negotiate, you can understand, and you can choose the best way going ahead with it. Now, before we can choose the mode of transport and things like that, we have to assess our transport needs. Well, you have to answer these questions, really. First is, what do you want to distribute? What's the product? Because if it's a bulky, cheap product, probably you wouldn't send it by air transport. And so identifying the product and the needs of that product and what kind of transportation is most suitable for it. How quickly you need to get it to your destination, because it can be perishable or because the client's requirement is that. So faster you need to go to be there, probably you move to the air transport. The distances, do you have a port available, seaport available or not? The other one is, how would the transport cost impact your overhead and overall cost? Now, if it's a very expensive product, if you are shipping diamonds, which half a kilo of it would be millions, then really the cost of transportation is always not important. It's security and things like that is more important. So you would go air transport with high security. If you are shipping wheat or cement or things like that, which has got a low value compared to its weight and volume, then you have to use things like sea transport or rail transport. So the cost of transport has got a major effect, depend on what kind of products you're moving around. Where do the goods needs to go? If it's going to somewhere which is landlocked, so there's no point to consider sea transportation, maritime transportation, because there is no ports around. So if it's going up the mountains, for example, somewhere. So the destination is very important. How valuable are the goods? What's the value of it? So that would affect what kind of transportation you can use. Does your customer have any specific needs, which can affect what kind of transportation? At the end, you have to balance the service quality, the cost, the organization of the whole thing, the time it will take, and that would tell you exactly what mode of transportation you really need to use. Now, the type of your goods has got a big influence on your decision as well, which it has to match the transportation which you want to use. Let's say if you're moving fresh fruit or perishable items, food stuff, the speed is important. You have to move it very fast and get it to the market. Otherwise, it would perish. So probably air transport would become most likely mode of transport. Otherwise, it has to be a specialized refrigerated, for example, mode of transport. if your goods needs to be kept refrigerated. So it has to be refrigerated truck, or this, if you're going to by the ship, so the ship has to be properly refrigerated, and so on. If you're doing livestock, you can only use certain terminals which are suitable for livestock. Being trucks or airplane needs to be adapted for that kind of transportation. If your goods are dangerous, it can be explosive, aerosols, for example. They need to follow certain rules and regulations. Some modes of transport cannot accept that kind of goods. Now, let's look at these different modes of transport one by one. Let's start with road transport. Relatively low cost. In Europe, for example, or in the state, extensive road works are there, network of roads are there, fast moving. So one of the advantages of using trucks is that actually can pick up your goods and shift it, move it right to the destination with no halfway house in between if you've got a full load sort of for a truck. But you can organize that almost any time, suitable for you, for your client as well. If you're taking a full truckload or container load, it can be fully secured, your product, and it's going to be sealed and just opened once it gets to its destination. The problem is you can have breakdowns, you can have traffics, you can have industrial actions, so that can affect the delivery time, and so on. It can be road accidents, which would obviously damage your goods. It can damage your goods as well. In some places, there is no other alternative except the road transport as well. And in many other modes of transport, eventually, like if it's a sea transport or air transport, for example, even rail transport, usually these modes of transport goes from one depot to another depot, or from one port to another port, or airport to another airport. So then you need an additional road transport to get it to final destination, or getting it to the port to be loaded. Now there are different type of carriers here. The couriers like DHL or FedEx, most suitable for small items. They come and pick it up from your office, and they deliver it to the destination. They do all the custom work, clearances, and so on. But it's expensive for an ongoing big sort of large volume commodities. Hauliers, the truckies, people who you can call them and book a truck. Now you have to do a lot of paperwork yourself. So, but you can call them and say, I want a truck to come to your warehouse, pick up the goods, and take it to the destination. Usually, you have to do a lot of paperwork yourself in that case, and you have to arrange loading, and on the other hand, arrange the unloading and so on. We use freight forwarders. Freight forwarders can do all the paperwork for you, organize a lot of intermediaries requirements in there, which I would recommend them. We will see how to use freight forwarders later on. Now, the next mode of transport is using the sea transport. Using a sea transport, it's suitable for large volumes. Many products actually have to be moved by sea because they're heavy or they're bulky and expensive to transport over land over long distances. Also, the cost is much lower, a lot lower than the shipment over land, or definitely by air. Also, if your shipment is not big, the freight forwarders can consolidate your consignment with others, so save some space, reduce the cost for you. If your shipment is big enough to fill in, let's say, 20-foot container or 40-foot container, the good thing about it then that container can be moved from the port to the destination without opening it up and reloading it somewhere else. So you can have a reasonably continuous movement of the goods. Well, disadvantage obviously is slower. It takes time obviously for ship to travel. It can be affected by bad weather. There are routes and timetables. That means the ships obviously have to go from A to B, which you want to go, and they may not be a direct shipment available there, so it has to go transshipment. Then it definitely would need a further road transport, because obviously your destination is not just a port, it would be outside the port, even if it's very near to it, has to be again shifted to a truck and then move to the next destination, to your warehouse. There are duties, port duties, which you have to pay, which extra. Usually don't have that with the trucks. And the basic freight rates can be subject to currency exchange fluctuation and fuel surcharges. So, well, you can protect all these things the same way as you protect your goods by having a proper insurance. Most of goods transported via air, sea, and most of the time land as well, they are subject to a standard international insurance. So there is a minimum insurance coverage. But you have to check what's the minimum insurance. If it's not enough, you would get additional insurance. And also you have to see on what circumstances those insurance claims can be made. So you need a further insurance always. Now, next type is a rail transport. Now, rail transport is a must in many situations, and in some situations are probably convenient. Like in Europe, you've got a big network of railways, so you can use it. It is again for long distance, it's suitable. If you're doing sending goods to the other end of Russia, the best way to do it, probably if you don't have an option of the sea, it would be railway. But has got its own problem as well. It obviously has got a timetable. It cannot be just any time. The destinations are not as versatile as with the truck. You can send it everywhere. You would have a secondary transportation as well need, because obviously the goods has to be moved from the railway depot to the final destinations. Again, subject to fuel, currency surcharges, and sometimes fuel and currency. Sometimes just the fuel. There is limited routes and timetable available, so that you have to see is suiting your destinations, your product, and so on. That's all for the air transport. For the railway transport, the air transport is very versatile. Usually, is the only way of transport for some perishable goods. If the goods value is high, is the most suitable one. If you are transporting goods to landlocked countries which have the nearest seaport, let's say, is 1,000 miles or so, that means you would have a overland. Not only you got a sea transport to do, probably additional either truck transport on land or railway and truck. So in these circumstances, you may find it is cheaper actually is flying over the goods to these countries. So as it can be, the speed is, you have got the speed there, it's more expensive but it's more secure. Airports are a lot more secure places than the ports and the railway terminals or the truck terminals. So if your goods needs security, need to be taken more care of it, handled by care. So airport can be the right mode of transport for you. Disadvantage is obviously is the cost. It's expensive relatively, so it's not suitable for bulky, low value products. Flights are subject to delay and cancellations like everything else, but usually the delays are few hours and a day. It wouldn't be much more than that. You would pay taxes, airport taxes, both ends most likely, so that's an additional cost. Definitely there is a fuel surcharges coming if the fuel prices goes up and down between the time you sign the contract and the time the goods are moving, so that usually are stipulated that in your shipping contract, so you would be charged for that. Definitely you need a further transportation, because obviously the airport cannot be the final destination, or the goods has to be taken to the airport in the origin as well. And is also limited. Not every city has got an airport, so you cannot just move it from one place to any destination. Again, insurance, there is a certain basic insurance coverage, but you have to consider to get a proper insurance for your goods in transit. That's all the transportation. Make sure you know all these, so when you talk to your forwarders, you can ask them about all these different elements, so how they take care of it. Thank you.